Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Connor Gray, and it has been a while since we've been here, and boy, things have changed a lot. We have seen so many crazy things happen over the past few days, but as always, when we get this show started, Connor, how are you doing today?
Depression.
Yeah, I mean...
Just full-blown depression after Monday. After yesterday, just not... And also trying to avoid having an aneurysm from that Stillwater Regional. And I did, and I was down there Saturday.
Yep.
And watched most of that game. It was chaotic, like how it ended up being in the final, like that game and then the next game. But, yeah, not my best. Not a great weekend for me.
Yeah, I mean... This is one of those weekends that I knew something was going to give, because this is going to be one of the biggest weekends in Oklahoma sports history in a while in terms of a non-football weekend. There was so much going on. I knew something was going to give at some point, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Andrew Santangelo, once again, don't know where he is. We're back to playing Where's Waldo with him, or phone tag, or insert any game here.
Basically what it's been pretty much almost the entire year with him.
But that's what happens when you're a very
busy man.
Very important and busy and have a lot of hats to wear. You usually go MIA for a few days.
Yep.
But we're going to get started with news that happened just about an hour or two ago before we went on the air today.
It happened about less than an hour ago.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Angels firing Joe Madden, Phil Nevin being named the interim manager. This is something I think it needed to happen for a while. The Madden hire did not really work out for the Angels at all.
In 19 and 20, you could make an argument, well, they didn't have guys that they needed. Well, they got some guys over the course of through into the 2020 season and 2021, and then they've done nothing with that talent. And also their pitching is kind of really iffy at times. And I think it was about time they just got rid of him. Is like he's not that guy who was able to take a team to a World Series championship. I think he got it because of amount of circumstances.
Yeah, I think it was a good time for Madden to leave the Cubs when he did in 2019, because you could see the decline there.
Yeah.
But if you're the Angels, what makes you think, like, he has run his course at Chicago. You could see the writing on the wall. This is still his team, and you could see it going down. I really don't know why they even hired him in the first place. I feel like there were other people you could have went to.
It was because of that championship ring and plus prestige, because he's a successful manager. He did have good runs with the Rays. Obviously, they didn't really go anywhere, but he made that team better with, obviously, help of getting the players they need from upper management, bringing them up through the minors, and also drafting those players. They did a great job with what he did there. Obviously, when he went to the Cubs, he was already getting a team put together already.
Yes.
That wasn't exactly his team. That was forget what his name is, but an executive who helped put that team together.
Yeah.
And Madden was just the guy who kept everything together. He was just that finishing touch to that team. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, not the best manager you could always have. I mean, I think he's a good one, but not like the amount of money he was probably getting paid by the Angels.
Yeah. I mean, you're going on a 12-game losing streak. The Angels have slowly but surely watched what feels like any hope of winning the AL West just go right out the window, or thinking you could at least compete in it. Well, slowly watching them go down to below 500 is going to be brutal.
Well, and the thing is, they still have like 4 more months left, 3-4 more months left until the season's over at the end of September. But the team could easily flip it around. You know, this is how baseball works. It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Teams that probably shouldn't be going anywhere all of a sudden go on a skirt and do really well for the remainder of the season. I mean, that's what happened with basically the Cardinals in their 2011 run, where they shouldn't even made it, and they somehow managed to get through August and September.
I mean, you could say that about any St. Louis Cardinals run in like the last 15 years. They have no business being there, and here they are.
At 13, they were still they were solid.
Yeah.
I think were they a wild card team in 13?
I can't remember if they were or not.
I just know that
I know 06 was the year they snuck in with like 0 anything.
yeah,
Them and Detroit played in the weird series.
06-11, they probably shouldn't have made the playoffs, but yet they did.
They did. They snuck in and then went on their little runs.
Yeah, but
anything can happen in baseball.
I think in 13 they won their division, I believe, but obviously you ran into a good Boston team.
Yeah.
So really nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. But interesting to see here. This is not the first manager to be fired in the MLB, though, because Joe Girardi, after 22 and 29 started, this happened Friday morning. I know I was talking to Andrew, and he said, you watch, they're going to fire him on Thursday. Well, they waited an extra 9 hours to fire him, but sure enough, he was pretty close, more accurate than I thought he would be. But Joe Girardi out as the manager of the Phillies, and I can understand why they did this, because when you've got a bunch of all-stars, you got a good team, it feels like
with
a good team.
Well, with the amount of money the Phillies have thrown in there, you expect something to happen. Like, you expect the coaching staff, including Joe Girardi, to do something with that team, and they haven't really done anything. They've had opportunities where they should have probably won the NL East, but they just decided we're not going to do well. I mean, last year I think was a result of they had the chance to do something and they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, he is kind of – I've seen some people defending Girardi saying, this is more on this is how you build a team. How are you supposed to build a team when your farm system can't do anything and you have a lack of pitchers and things like that? That's not really on the manager. You can't just turn a guy who has a horrible ERA into, the next Cy Young.
Yeah, it's like I understand that argument, but it's up to him to move them in the right direction to avoid that. I understand he's not the pitching coach for the Phillies, but he's just as much responsible as the pitching as his assistants are.
Yeah.
But also that comes down to who they draft in, because they're also in the picture of the draft, because eventually they're going to bring those players up, whether they send them AAA, AA, or A ball, or whatever else is below them.
Yeah, or rookie A or what, all the little A's.
But basically, it's up to them to actually start figuring out who they want to take and who they send and bring up.
Mm-hmm.
They just and once again, it's like that can be more down to upper management making most of those decisions, or him being in some way of influence. But it still amounts to that. He still is as much responsible for their failures as upper management is.
Yeah.
In some aspects. Obviously, not everything is his fault.
Mm-hmm. And then I do want to mention Rob Thompson being named the interim manager. Wins his first game over, guess who? The L.A. Angels. So it all comes full circle. And speaking of full circle, basketball is a full circle, and the Utah Jazz fired, I have to put this in quotations because he left on his own accord, but it feels more like you get shown the door to leave on your own will. But CEO Danny Ainge saying that the team desperately wanted Quinn Snyder to stay. I really don't know how to feel about this because he's a good enough coach, but at the same time, you've seen the writing on the wall for Utah. When you've just continued in this make the first round, maybe have a good year where you make the second round, that's about where your team's built to go. You're not going to get to a conference championship appearance or a finals appearance or anything like that, anything super crazy with the way this team is built. I really don't like Quinn Snyder leaving as if it was the Jazz firing him. But if he wants to leave on his own, take a year or two off to go do whatever he wants to do, I don't see a problem with that from his perspective.
So if it was a firing, the way obviously Utah is framing it, he just left on his own, which I believe that's more likely the case.
Yeah.
If he got fired, then it's like that's not a great firing because man's a good coach. You just got to get him some players. Obviously, I know he's also responsible for drafting players, but that's still an executive decision, not a coaching decision.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, but if he's obviously living on his own, I hope he has a good time taking some time off. And if he decides he wants to come back to coaching, I'm all for it. Hopefully he could find a head coaching job somewhere, whether it be the NBA or even college level. More likely it's going to be the NBA, but still, as long as he's able to have a job.
Yeah, and what I'm interested to see what this will do to the Jazz is obviously what happened immediately following Donovan Mitchell was surprised and disappointed that Quinn Snyder left. and the rumor mill has cranked into high gear after Adrian Wojnarowski reported it, is that Donovan Mitchell probably going to be, it really does feel like the Jazz are about to blow this thing up. Because if Donovan Mitchell's unhappy, you've got the split of, do you want Mitchell and Gobert?
Well, you also have to take in question, is Gobert happy?
Yes. From what I've read, it sounds like Gobert is fine in Utah, that he doesn't have a problem out there.
I will
but
say
the other thing is, do you want to pay him $45 million?
I will say it's probably going to get blown up more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there'll be teams that have enough room on their cap to take him for $45 million.
Yeah.
But obviously, you still got to deal with Donovan Mitchell, who is Donovan still under contract?
Yeah, he's still under contract for 3 more years.
Okay, it's like now does Utah trade him, or do they still keep him and he has to deal with the rebuild? And if I'm Donovan Mitchell, I'd be looking to get traded if it's going to be, seems like management's going to blow it up. But obviously that will come down to what Danny Ainge decides he wants to do for the organization.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Utah tries to pull off here. Obviously, your same teams you always expect to be popping up in these names, like the Knicks and the Heat and teams like that, always seem to come up in these trades for Donovan Mitchell.
I will say when it comes to a trade, it's like, well, who are you gonna? What's that? What are you gonna trade for Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
Either you trade your future, or do you? Obviously, if you're Miami, you have no issue trading your future because you currently
you're trying to win now.
You have a team you can win with now, but obviously you're going to lose some pieces just to get Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
But that's depending on if you just give up a couple players, which could be some guys that are off your bench that can possibly thrive to being a starter, or you just give away draft picks.
Yeah,
it's
like
I think if you're Utah, if you decide to blow it up, you might want to look for draft picks rather than players.
Yeah, it's one of those. What do you go after? Do you go after like young core vet or young pieces of a championship core that you think could help you rebuild? Do you go after draft picks? I personally like the draft pick route myself. We're seeing how it's working in Oklahoma City. So much going on there.
Yeah, but it's like I will say with
so I really am interested to see what the Jazz do.
Yeah, it's going to be something. Obviously, many of us are going to be looking forward to. Probably, I would say you more than me because I'm not as in tune with the NBA, but I still enjoy watching it from time to time. But obviously not as big as I would if this was like 5 years ago, I would have been as invested as you are.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see what the route is. Like I agree. I think picks are probably a better way to go teams into giving you picks rather than players. Like obviously you might want to take a player from them that way. At least it replaces a number on your lineup or maybe 2. Usually typically just kind of guys that really aren't going to do much of anything.
Yeah.
So that way you can probably get another pick in the draft, depending on how bad your record is. Obviously, that's tanking, and I don't like that. But you're thinking about your future rather than worrying about the now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, other teams like Miami are going to be looking for the now. Especially Dallas needs to look for the now.
Dallas will do what Dallas always does.
But I will say Dallas doesn't need Donovan Mitchell. They might maybe looking for someone like Rudy Gobert. They need a post presence.
They do.
Like a physical post. I understand they have some guy. But obviously the tallest player is like 6'9", you said, or whatever.
6'9", 6'10".
So it's like, but they're not really guys that are going to be. They're not really starters.
Yeah, I mean, you got if you're the Mavs, and I mean your tallest guy's Boban, but your tallest realistic starter is Dwight Powell, 6'9", 6'10".
Yeah,
and Davis Bertans off the bench is 6'10", and they're not the best defensive guys in the world. Powell can do things at times, but I mean, if the Mavs were able to swing a Gobert trade and like send Bertans and a few pieces out there, Powell or something like that, I wouldn't mind it.
I think more likely what happened is that you trade Powell, maybe another player for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I mean, the problem
Basically,
is like, who do you, if you're the Mavs, the problem.
Or you trade a pick away.
Well, that's the thing. The Mavs don't have a lot of picks because Porzingis
Just
trade.
give him another pick.
we already have like 2, and I don't even know where those are currently because we used some of our picks in the Porzingis trade, and then Dallas used their other picks in the other Porzingis trade. So I don't know where Dallas's picks are. They're either in New York or Washington, but I sure know they're not in Dallas.
Cuban will somehow will just magically give away
Mark
picks.
Cuban about to trade a 2040 pick for Rudy Gobert. He's like, you know what? We're going to do this now.
I mean, that man ain't giving up the
I mean,
Mavericks for a long time. So.
Probably not. They're going to have to take that away from him at some point if he's going to be like 80
it's-
years old and still be in charge of the Mavs. That man will take the Mavs with him to the grave, for better or for worse. I don't know. I don't know yet. But moving on to the NBA Finals, Game 1, we talked about it. We said Golden State, Boston should be a fun time, and it was a good time to be a Warriors fan for about 3 quarters.
And then the fourth quarter happened.
And then the fourth quarter happened. Boston made, 9 threes in the fourth quarter? Something
they
like
basically
that.
made a bunch of threes.
The Celtics had an amazing game plan to beat the Warriors. Shoot 51% from 3.
Yes.
That you're going to win almost any game against any team when you
and
can
also
do
just
that.
kind of let Golden State fold. Because Golden State was pretty much mostly
Golden State was,
especially after that third quarter, Golden State had everything in their hands, and then the fourth quarter happened.
Yeah, Golden State's down 2 at the half, and then third quarter Warriors do what third quarter Warriors do. You get up, 14, 16, somewhere in there, and then Boston just outscores you 40-16 in the fourth quarter.
This is one of those where the Golden State Boston didn't really win. It was more Golden State just lost.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like, especially the way they when we get to the other game, how they played down the road.
Yeah. Steph Curry had 34 points in this one. He had 21 in the first quarter. And then the Celtics are like, okay, he's hot. We'll figure this out. And then Curry finishes 12 for 25 shooting in game 1. But Al Horford, 9 for 12, super efficient, 26 points, did everything he needed to do. You got to have guys like that.
And it was also Tatum getting shut down.
Yeah, when Tatum doesn't have a good game or when Brown doesn't have a good game, when you're going to rely on some of your other players, that's a championship caliber team.
Smart and Horford played really well.
They did. And then you look at game 2, it was the exact opposite in terms of momentum, I guess you could say. Warriors getting a 107-88 blowout win the opposite way, where the Warriors once again had a big third quarter, but this time they just really played an entire garbage time of a quarter. Boston kind of just took their starters out with 9 minutes to go, and it was really weird to see Boston just kind of wave the white flag.
Yeah, it just made no sense why Boston folded so quick. It's like after what happened in game 1, especially Jason Tatum's actually shooting better and scoring points.
Yeah, 28.
It's like you think that, okay, let's try to go win this thing. They only lost by 19, which I know some people that's a huge deficit.
But you saw what happened in the fourth quarter in game 1.
Yeah, it's like Boston could easily, if the shooting went well for them in the fourth quarter, they could have easily made this game really close, maybe go to overtime or win the game. Who knows? But instead, Boston just went, well, we're done. It was so pathetic because we know you can come back on the Warriors.
Yeah.
Just do it. And especially the Warriors did not have a good fourth quarter. They scored 20. That's 4 better than they did in the first game, but still it's like
barely an improvement.
Yeah, barely.
But the Warriors kind of did the same thing too. They threw 3 backups and then Draymond and Clay out there. They did the exact same thing, which I expected the Warriors to do. But I think the Celtics strategy behind it, because the Warriors did it against Dallas as well in game 4, where it's get your younger guys some experience, let them know this is how it feels to be playing at this caliber. So you can come out in game 3, they can be a little bit better off the bench when they need to be.
I guess it's one of those things where it's just like Boston could have actually done something, and they're capable of doing it. They just, for some reason, whether it be the coaches, whether it be their head coach or the players, decide more likely their coach.
Yeah.
Decide we'll just throw in the white flag. We'll just go back to Boston.
Yeah.
And I'm like, obviously you're going back to Boston. That'll favor Celtics better, but that's a huge gamble right there.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting to see if this may not even matter. This series might end in Boston in 6 or 7. It may not even matter. But it is going to be something that if we go 7 games, it will be one of those moments you look back at and think, maybe this should have been over already.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where Boston could have, like we said, Boston could have came back and done something. Instead, they chose not to. It's one thing I hate with in any of the series. Instead of trying to give every game your all, teams will just decide. It's like I understand when you're down by 30 to 40. Okay, yeah, it's understandable. Wave the white flag. But it's when the game's within 20 to 25 points, you need to start let's try something to get back in the game and let's try to win it, because it just looks like you just don't really care to be there. It's like, Boston, this is your first time back in the finals since 09, 10?
Since the Big Three era.
Since the Big Three era. It was like, you got to do something. Instead, they haven't done it. But
yeah,
I digress.
Yeah, it's one of those where I understand the mentality of it a little bit, because I think it's become more and more prevalent. Just get the guys out of here. We don't want to risk injury. Just accept the loss, move on. But at the same time, when it's within reach, I mean, you can physically
and also
get to that point.
And it's the NBA Finals.
Yeah, it's like you're not gonna. This isn't a regular season game in December, where you can just whatever, laugh this off. Haha, we got beat by the Warriors. We'll play them 1 or 2 more times this year. Maybe we'll see them in the playoffs. This is the playoffs. This is the championship.
Yep.
I understand it, but I don't agree with it 100%. But that takes us into Game 3, Wednesday night. Series moving to Boston now. Celtics are a 3.5-point favorite in this Game 3, and this is going to be intriguing. I mean, it's going to be a sellout crowd in the Garden, as it always is. It's going to be just such a fun time. I really want to see how well both teams play now that they're here, because Boston has been really weird at home this entire playoffs. Sometimes they come out and play amazing at home. Sometimes they come out and play horrible at home.
Yep.
Golden State, you know what you're going to get from them. They're consistent. Whether they're on the road or at home, you know what Warriors team you're getting. The Celtics, still a bit more, I guess I would say, of a Jekyll and Hyde team, where are we going to get the Boston that drops 125 and shoots 50% from 3, or are we going to get the Boston team that turns it over 20 times a game and everyone plays terrible?
That both scenarios are very likely to happen. It's basically 50-50. Once again, you don't know which Boston team you're going to get, and also you don't know what Warriors team you're going to get, because right now Clay's not playing well, at least in regards to the last game they played. He did not shoot well, so basically you got to hope Clay just refuses to get going.
I mean, he's saving up his energy for Game 6. We all know this. We're waiting for Game 6 Clay to show up. They even said that today. I saw an interview. They were asking Clay, like, what do you do when you're in these struggles? What do you do? He's like, well, I watch old highlights of myself. I was like, and the ESPN reporter was like, well, what game do you watch? Well, I watched Game 6 Clay. Everyone was, that's the game where he went off that everyone remembers. And the Warriors are going to need that Clay to show up at some point. I understand that Game 6 Clay is pretty much a meme now,
but
it only happens.
But it shouldn't have to go to Game 6 for him to do something. He's got to do it now. And if they Warriors want to win this, they need him, because as Curry's in both games has played great.
Yes,
but you need Clay to be there to help pull the load.
Yeah,
and if he's still not there, if he still doesn't do anything, then more likely Boston will take the series before Game 6. But that depends on, because that means, but still Boston has to go back to San Francisco to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But that depends on how far the series goes.
Yeah, it all depends on which Warriors team and which Celtics team shows up. We'll talk a little bit more about picks, because Andrew did text me. He said he will be here shortly, so we'll have him on the show to kind of
all right, we'll go
discuss
back to
this a little bit more. But I do want to talk about the NHL, kind of recap every single game here, starting all the way back on Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. And Colorado was at home. They're playing great. It really doesn't matter what goalie they have. I mean, you got Francouz in there, and just absolutely perfect. Just a 24 saves, 24 for 24. Colorado got a 4-0 win over Edmonton. And my goodness, what can't this Avs team do?
Pretty much everything, because Edmonton has a sorry excuse of a goalie.
I mean,
and also a sorry excuse of a defense, because, good Lord, it's like they rely. This is what happens when you rely way too much on offense. You rely way too much on Connor McDavid and that more offensive heavy group of guys to do a lot. That's not saying Edmonton can't play defense. They just, versus the Avalanche. Avalanche is an overall way beyond Edmonton.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it didn't matter who was Colorado was gonna play, whether it be Calgary or Edmonton. Results probably would have been the same or similar.
Yeah, it would have been interesting, I think, to see just how the Avs would have looked if they would have had their starting goalie in this one as well, if they would have had Kemper out there.
Yeah.
But the result wouldn't have changed.
No, it wouldn't have.
But then we get to Game 2. New York defeating Tampa again 3-2 there. Rangers playing really well at home.
Yep, and I told you they were going to do something sneaky and take 2.
Yeah, you did. You got that pick right.
It was because it was just kind of based on how New York was playing this entire playoffs. Obviously, round 1 should have been eliminated by the Pens. Instead, come back 3-1.
Yeah.
The next series pretty much beat up.
You beat up Carolina.
Yeah, beat up Carolina. Actually, no, you go to Game 7 with them, and you're both trading home and home.
But you beat them up in New York.
And then you beat them up. Well, they beat them up in New York, but they couldn't win in Carolina until Game 7, and then they pretty much smoked. Well, right now they're currently having to deal with Tampa, and so far up to before we get to the other game, pretty much we're handling Tampa with no issues.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call 3-2 and no issues, but
that's not. You're missing more of the point. Like New York overall had control.
New York has control of the series. I mean, you got a 2-0 lead now, 2-1. They do have control of the series. You're right about that. But I mean, the Rangers are they're not dominating the game. They're playing extremely well, but it's not. I wouldn't call
of all the games they've played so far.
Win.
They've mostly have been the better. Seemed like
they've played like the better team. That's true, but you got to finish out. And then, speaking of finishing out, Colorado going to Edmonton, Game 3. Avs getting a 4-2 win there. The Avs getting another big win. Offense playing well. What a shocker there. And the Avs took, at the time, a 3-0 lead. I mean, just kind of looking at some of these stats here. Edmonton did what I want to see them do. They had more hits than Colorado, but you got to have that shot number up. You can't get outshot 43-29, and you can't get 23 penalty minutes for the Oilers to 4 for the Avs. That all adds up, and it spelled the end of the Oilers, which we'll get to in a moment. Then Game 3, Tampa Bay coming back home, getting a big third-period rally, was down 2-1, get a few goals, get a 3-2 win. And Andrei Vasilevsky playing well at home, getting that nice second star. I talked about this is going to be a fun goalie matchup with Shesterkin and Vasilevsky. And Tampa Bay took 52 shots. They just hammered away at Shesterkin and were finally able to get 3 goals.
I mean,
that just shows how good Shesterkin is more than anything.
Yeah, but it's mainly it's more amount to Tampa was trying to win a game because you're down 2-0.
Yeah, you're going to throw everything you have.
But obviously that's up to the Rangers. They should have been responding better. It's like pretty much they were even on everything in regards to that team stats except for obviously shots.
Yeah,
but it was like that was mainly Rangers just didn't respond enough on offense.
Yeah,
like Tampa did, because I think if Rangers were able to get 2 goals. Like
they had a 2-0 lead.
It took 52 to get 3 goals for Tampa. That just shows how good defensively Rangers were mostly playing that game, and obviously their Rangers goalie doing a very good job. But obviously, if they responded back in kind, they probably either that game goes to overtime or they take the series.
Yeah.
Really, just Tampa's defense hasn't been the best so far, but they played much better in Game 3.
That is.
Almost if they would have went down 3-0, I would have called it right there where Rangers were going to take the series.
But yeah, I think if they would have got up 3-0, it probably ends. And then what happened last night in Edmonton, Colorado getting the Oilers' best shot, a 3-1 punch at one point. Oilers are looking great. Everything's going well. They're not getting swept. You're going into the locker room up 3-1 thinking, okay, we got this. All we got to do is not turtle for 20 minutes. All you have to do is not play to not lose. All you have to do is play to win. And you know what happened? They did the thing you never do. You always play to win.
They did what St. Louis did.
They did. Well, here's the thing. Colorado comes out 30 seconds into the period, Devin Towns gets a goal. And if that's not your immediate wake-up call, Avs are they're coming for the kill shot. They're coming to end this thing. If that doesn't wake you up, and I mean, Zach Hyman gets a goal.
To keep them within 2, but then that wasn't enough.
Yeah, and then Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen, all in a row. And you kind of got the feeling, okay, here's Landeskog. Okay, oh no, McKinnon's tied the game. Oh no, they're on a power play. You just kind of felt the sense of dread slowly creep up on Edmonton. And by the time McKinnon tied the game and you get that power play, even though they was still a 4-4 game, you just had the feeling of this is over. This is done. We're done here.
I will say this is also a thing. And I think for any home team, you don't lose a series in front of your home fans.
No.
You're better off losing on the road, even if it's all you're doing is prolonging the inevitable.
Yeah, and Colorado then took the lead on a Rantanen goal, made it 5-4. Now Zach Kossin, he was able to tie the game late, and it felt like, okay, Oilers aren't going away yet. They at least held on to overtime, and all it took was about a minute 19. Lehkonen gets a goal, and the Avs, for the first time in a long, long time, are back in the Stanley Cup Finals.
I was about to say, it took less than a minute and a half for Avs to finally end it.
Yes, so stat holds true. Connor McDavid has still never won a Western Conference Finals game. Edmonton continues to have a good but not good enough team, as we have kind of projected. I think most people were wondering how this was going to match up this year. I mean, no matter who you threw at Colorado, they were going to run through the West. No matter who you threw at them with Edmonton or Calgary, like you said earlier, no matter what, that was going to happen. But just kind of look at some of these stats. Colorado continues to outshoot them, but Edmonton won 12 more faceoffs. Colorado had more penalty minutes. And these three stats right here tell you Edmonton probably should have won the game.
More than likely, they should have.
This was the recipe you needed, but then you get outshot, and you have one of the most disastrous third periods I've ever seen for a team that absolutely could not afford to have one.
Well, that was mainly the issue with Rangers and Tampa, was that Rangers, for the most part, were either even or did better statistically than in the main categories that you need to win. They had mainly all three, except for shots. They got outshot by almost 20. That just meant, actually, no, they did get shot by 22. I should say that. But it's like, that's one of the, where at the end of the day, if you're getting outshot, there's a problem. I mean, though there's teams that have won by not having the most shots, but that's very rare.
Yeah.
In regards to
especially at this level.
Yeah, at this level, it's usually whoever has the most shots on goal or just shots in general is typically going to win.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. And then tonight's game, you have New York and Tampa Bay. Game number 4, going to be interesting. It really will. This is going to be a do-or-die game, I really think, for Tampa. You're favored. You're at home. You've got to win. This is every game's a must-win in the playoffs, obviously, but I think this one is more than usual.
It's more of a scenario of you lose this game, you go to New York, more likely the series will probably be over.
You go down 3-1 up there, that you're not coming back from that, more likely.
It's just the way the Rangers overall have been playing throughout the playoffs in their first 2 series. It's not necessarily a good look, especially if you're down to them, because they will take care of business.
Yes.
Because they don't lose in New York, obviously, except for like the one time they did against the 1 or 2 times against the Pens.
Yeah.
But that, even then, that wasn't enough to keep them out of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where Rangers are going to be deadly to deal with, especially you want to take even the series up and hopefully still win in New York. And because you do not want to go back to New York for Game 7.
No, you want to be able to close this thing out in 6. You do not want any part of Madison Square Garden for a Game 7.
Because that team is almost impossible. Rangers are almost impossible to beat in Game 7.
Yeah.
It's almost like any New York team. Even the Islanders have this issue where if you go to Game 7 with them, that's going to be a tough one to even. You'll be lucky if you can even win a game there.
Yeah.
So you gotta answer now, and you gotta answer in New York for Game 5.
Yeah, which is going to be tough because, I mean, the Islanders did the same thing the Rangers did. The Islanders, I'm pretty sure, they were dominant at home as well against the Lightning these past 2 conference finals. Mm-hmm. It always is going to come down to Tampa Bay taking one pivotal road game, if they can do it. If they can't do it, obviously, New York just needs to win at home. That's all you got to do.
Yep.
It's going to come down to, can they win a pivotal game? If we're calling it, I think Tampa does get the win tonight. I think they do even the series up. I'm not backing down on my prediction of Tampa in 7 yet, but it will be a tight one for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if this is another one of those Rangers lead for 2 periods, Lightning make a late push and steal the game from them, and then you get a 2-2 series going back to New York.
I could easily see that, though. Overall, the way the Rangers have played as a team, have overall played much better. Obviously, you don't count the shots in Game 3. Your Rangers overall have dominated, but you take the shots into account.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tampa, their offense is alive, but their defense really needs some adjustments.
Yeah.
Some adjustments. Not everything needs to be adjusted, but you got to make some changes where necessary. But I want to say Rangers steal one and go up 3-1, but I'm going to go with Tampa ties it. I'm basically go along with your prediction. Rangers are up and Tampa steals one late.
Yeah.
And basically sends the series back. Though obviously when we get to Game 5, that'll be that. But we'll wait until Thursday on that one.
Yeah, but this is going to be a 7 o'clock. One thing I do want to talk about that I think is really nice that ESPN is doing is they've been playing every Eastern Conference Finals game on ESPN, obviously, and on ESPN Plus. So even if you don't have cable, you can still watch all the hockey you want. Still allowing that, $5 a month to watch.
And I will say within not sure how the results have like numbers and everything for hockey have been, but
they've been pretty good.
What I will say is like this is for their first year with ESPN. I'd say it's a major success because I think more people are able to watch hockey more because ESPN's actually giving you hockey on almost all their channels that are not ESPN.
You don't like NBC Sports, at 8:30 at night when no one can watch it ever?
Mainly because I don't know which channel that is.
It doesn't exist anymore. But
it was like even when it was around, I didn't know what channel it was.
Yeah,
that just shows how bad of marketing it was.
It was wonderful marketing. Hey, come watch this team, maybe or maybe not.
Like they had great commentators, but they didn't know what to do with the hockey. So basically, it amounted to watch your local stuff. Yeah. That was the only way you were going to be able to watch any hockey.
Yeah.
That was available to you. Otherwise, it was like there was no point in watching NBC because NBC didn't care about NHL.
Yeah.
Yet they got exclusive rights to do all their major televised games, but yet they hardly ever showed it.
Yeah.
So it was like obviously Stanley Cup came around, they would still show the games, but you never got to watch all of them.
Yeah.
Because some of them were still blocked off.
And another thing I am excited to see how it works is ESPN announced that they're going to be doing a new kind of like, I can't remember what they call it, like the Ice Cast or something like that. That'll be an ESPN Plus exclusive where it's going to be kind of, for the NBA Finals, they do the Around the Rim where it's the top of the rim and you get to see the game in a whole new perspective where you're just going up and down, almost like 2K mode, basically.
Oh, okay.
Where it's just vertical up and down the entire time. Well, they're doing that for hockey now. They're doing it where instead of the normal arena cam,
the normal broadcast,
it'll still be more kind of tilted like this.
But it's going up and down
you'll
the
have
floor
you'll have a stat cast right under it telling you like ice shift time and hits, goals, points, all that fun stuff.
That's going to be a lot of work for guys working in the truck, but
if they pull it off, and tonight's the first night they're showing it off.
That's actually sounds really awesome.
Yeah, if they can get it done, I'll probably look at it a little bit just to try it out and see how it looks. But if it looks good, I'll probably keep using it. And I hope if it is good, if they can get the kinks out, they got the Stanley Cup Finals this year. So I would not be surprised to see them make that an alternative cast like they've done for the NBA Finals this year, where you basically have the CJ McCollum podcast while the finals is going on. Which, I mean, I'm down for. We need more NBA podcasters. We got J.J. Redick. We got C.J. McCollum. Skid was putting together.
There's more guys.
But those are the two main ones.
Well, it's mainly because the other ones are not as popular.
Yeah.
Or they're not, and also Redick works with ESPN.
He does.
So that's why his stuff's obviously propped up.
Yes.
Plus, he's also kind of funny guy to listen to.
He is a funny guy to listen to. That is correct.
I think you got to, obviously, he pretty much has that sense of humor because he went to Duke, and he also all that hate he gets, and also that people flirted the whole Christian Laettner stuff on him.
Yeah. That'll do it to you.
There's always that one white player for Duke that always gets labeled with the Christian Laettner hate. Despite the fact it's like, I'm not Christian Laettner.
There's always one dude in general on Duke. It just feels like you have to hate. I mean, Christian Laettner set the standard. J.J. Redick was that guy for a while.
Well, it's like he was that guy, but he only played like 2 seasons with Duke. I mean, so you couldn't really hate him as much.
The main one that I think the closest we'll ever get to a true Christian Laettner comparison was Grayson Allen. I think that is the closest we will ever see to like the modern Christian Laettner in college basketball. But that is enough of me talking about Duke players. It's time to talk a little college softball. And this was one of the crazier days I can actually remember in the World Series, starting with UCLA upsetting Oklahoma. I mean, this was unexpected, I guess is the best way to put it. I was stunned watching it where, UCLA goes up 2-0. Okay, Jada Coleman hits a home run. Sooners are going to come back. It's 2-1. And Maya Brady absolutely had herself a day, hitting a big 3-run home run, made it 5-1 UCLA. And when that happened, I could see, I was looking, kind of checking on OU fans' social media, stuff like that. You could feel the whole energy shift from, oh, yeah, we're coming back to, oh, this is going to be a game. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a challenge here. Let's see what's about to happen. OU responds. Grace Lyons gets a 2-run home run, makes it 5-3. And it slowly felt like momentum was shifting in OU's favor. You get Jordy Ball in. She's doing a great job in relief. Everything is going well. But Maya Brady comes up with a clutch 2-run home run to pretty much shut the door on OU, get a 7-3 lead going into the bottom of the 7th, and just shut Oklahoma down pitching-wise with Azevedo. So UCLA played really well, but UCLA, like I've always said, did the one thing you're not supposed to do, and that is score on Oklahoma. Because when you do this, you upset the machine, and the machine responds back with a 15-0 run rule win. It was worth it, I guess I'll say. If you would have told me at the beginning of yesterday, hey, OU's going to lose, but trust me, it'll be worth it. Something funny's going to happen. I wouldn't have believed it. And my goodness, it did happen. Oklahoma getting a 15-0 run rule win. Jocelyn Allo hitting 2 home runs and a grand slam even. It was such a fun thing to see. So Oklahoma advances to the National Championship Series. And then later that night, Oklahoma State taking on Texas. The same thing happens. Estelle Check getting the start for Texas. It was a bit of not a surprise decision. She had been absolutely dealing it. Oklahoma State going with Morgan Day, saving Maxwell for the if-necessary game, which would become reality. Texas got a 5-0 win in Game 1, and this forces Game 2. And Oklahoma State gets Maxwell out there. Pokes are playing great. They're up 5-0. Everything seems to be in control.
And then everything fell apart.
Yeah, and then Texas gets a 3-run home run. Is okay, we got a game. 5-3. Going to be interested to see how this holds on. And then what can be described as one of the craziest plays I've ever seen in a college softball semifinal took place, where you have a base hit that turns into a cutoff throw to Haley Busby, who's the first baseman, which makes a weird error in that she was trying to throw to second base, and she put way too much heat on it, and it sails right past the second baseman, falls down trying to catch it, goes all the way to the outfield wall. Texas scores 3, gets a 6-5 win, and that place was stunned. No one could believe what they just saw. I couldn't believe it. Texas fans couldn't even believe it. They're just like, what the heck? We're winning now? What is happening?
Texas basically got lucky.
I mean, Texas, they got
basically it amounted to Oklahoma State messing up. OSU blew. It's like that first game, I don't know what happened. Bats just didn't come through, and pitching just didn't go the way it should have gone with Day on the mound instead. And then go to necessary game, up 5-0, and then proceed to just it's like we're struggling to get players out. They get 3 runs, and then we make probably the worst play in that World Series, which on an error to second by basically losing control of the throw, sailing to the left, and goes, like you said, all the way to the outfield. They score 3 runs out of it to take the lead.
Yep.
It's one of the most it's like, and then it's luckily for me, I wasn't really, my eyes weren't necessarily glued on this one, mainly because there was another baseball was happening.
Yeah, I would say this was
because
double OSU.
My experience with baseball,
Yeah.
I'm more paying attention to that than softball because I'm thinking, oh, OSU's just going to eventually get it. Instead, no, they don't. And when I actually watched some of the softball game, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We had this great of a season. We're just going to let it end like this. Like, I don't think it's probably one of the worst days in Oklahoma State sports history where softball did not go as planned. And, well, I know we're going to get to baseball, so I'm going to save it there for now for baseball. But for softball, this was probably be as great. It's like as great as that team has been all year. This has been the most disappointing. It's been the way it ended. If we would have lost to OU 2 straight in the final, I wouldn't have been sad because I'm like, we got there.
Yeah.
Now it's time to get the pieces together to actually win it.
Yeah.
And also, OU would want revenge for that Big 12 championship loss.
Yes.
But I don't know how that whole series would have turned out. Who knows how the bats for OU would have been, or if they would have been going off on us, or they would have been kept cold for at least a game.
Yeah.
Who knows? But either way, all knows there's now a Red River matchup again.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I, for one, welcome an SEC championship game in OKC. Welcome to the future.
Shut your mouth.
That was the one joke I saw on Twitter. Was like, well, boys, welcome to the SEC now.
You're not SEC yet. You're still Big 12.
It was like, SEC, take us now. Winner pays, the others buyout. Or loser pays, the others buyout.
That's not happening.
I know that's not
Texas hates you. They're not going to help you.
You never know. Sometimes,
they're your boys now?
Sometimes you got to be frenemies. That's all I'm saying.
So they're your boys now.
For that one series against OSU, there were OU fans like, if Texas beats OSU twice, I'm not going to root for that to happen, but I'm not going to say I won't laugh either. And that is the essentially feeling was you wanted a
so you don't truly hate them at all.
Oh, we do hate them. It's just sometimes
stop being their buddies.
Then sometimes them winning is comedically
How about you stop being
funny.
Their buddies for
like
once?
If they beat Alabama, I'm not gonna lie, I would laugh a lot if Texas beat Alabama. I'd also laugh a lot if Alabama beats Texas. I'm not gonna lie. Texas winning when it is convenient for Oklahoma is sometimes.
We know what's going to happen. OU's going to freaking sweep them.
I mean, I expect OU to dominate. I expect it to be close for a little bit. Then OU just starts crushing them.
OU is going to sweep them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that. They're going to sweep them.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. If we're making predictions already, I think Oklahoma will take this one in 2 games. So Texas getting the rare double upset. And if it went 3, it would be the 2nd straight year in a row. We'd play every single game, but I don't think that one's going to happen this year. I think Oklahoma's going to take care of business. Starting now in college baseball, it was a really more questionable time than you thought it would be for Tennessee. You get off to a good start. You beat Alabama State 10-0, and then Campbell gave them a game for a long time before Tennessee explodes in the late 8th and 9th to get a 12-7 win. And then Georgia Tech hangs around, has a lead going into the 9th, and then Tennessee explodes once again for 6 runs and gets a 9-6 win. Volunteers.
They were supposed to have the easy one.
They were supposed to have one of the easier ones.
I know they never went to a necessary game, but the fact that they struggled against Campbell for a good while, and then Georgia Tech was actually winning at one point.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
To be fair, Campbell is one of the better home run hitting teams in the country, but the Georgia Tech one, there's no excuse for letting that be as close as it was and losing most of that game.
Yeah.
But Tennessee will take on Notre Dame. The Irish defeated Texas Tech twice to win the Statesboro Regional.
Like I said, it was either going to be Notre Dame or Tech to get out of that region.
I think we all said that.
Yeah, I know we all said that, but it's like anyone who actually thought otherwise, you haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
Notre Dame and Tech were good.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Southern, you knew it was going to be a bad sign for them because you had to play Notre Dame, who felt they deserved to be in a regional, and then Texas Tech, who probably also should have been a 2 seed somewhere, and they were all going to have to battle it out. Notre Dame and Tech tag teamed, eliminated Georgia Southern, and the Irish getting to play Tennessee in a super regional. Looking over at Stanford, the number 2 team in the country, they had to go the full 7. This one I talked about. Texas State is a extremely talented team, top 15 for most of the year for a reason. They got a 5-2 upset on the Cardinal. Stanford had to come back, beat them twice, and they did, winning Game 6 8-4. And then Game 7.
That was in Texas State hands. Texas State had that game won, and Stanford came back and won the game.
Yeah, you have a 3-1 lead, and then you give up back-to-back jacks. Stanford ties it, plays a little bit of just getting people on bases, doing whatever you need to do. Get a base hit, walk it off with a 4-3 win to go and host a super regional against the UConn. The Huskies, they did it. I know we talked about Maryland, Wake Forest, that would be competitive, but UConn said, hey, this is our regional. We're taking this thing. We're going to beat Wake Forest, and they did it. Got an 8-7 win. Maryland, just my goodness, we'll talk about this, but 23-2 on Long Island. This is an absolute crushing a team. UConn delivered the next day, though, with a 10-5 win over the Terps, and then Maryland eliminated Wake Forest 10-5. Maryland beat UConn in Game 1, 7-6, but UConn returned the favor with an 11-8 win in a really chippy Game 7. There was a lot of smack talking to fans, the UConn players waving goodbye to Maryland at the end, saying, goodbye to this state, we're on to Palo Alto. So, will be interesting to see how the Huskies deal with Stanford.
Well, if you're UConn, you basically have to fly across the entire country.
Yeah, you get to go across America. So good luck to them. In Austin, the Horns getting an 11-3 win over Air Force, and Louisiana Tech just destroying Dallas Baptist 12-5. Then Air Force didn't go 0-2. It's your first tournament since 1969. You can't go 0-2. They beat Dallas Baptist 5-1, and then Texas getting a 5-2 win over Louisiana Tech. Air Force eliminates Louisiana Tech 9-7, and then Texas just did it again, 10-1.
So that Louisiana Tech game, that was maybe the only time Texas really didn't do much hitting wise, but Texas was never in danger of losing their regional.
No,
I'm not sure if I predicted they'd win. They didn't go to a necessary game, but I thought Dallas Baptist would give Texas a run for their money, but that never happened.
No, that never ended up happening. Dallas Baptist kind of just went away.
They kind of just died.
Yeah. And then the East Carolina regional, the Greenville regional. This was a lot of fun. This was way more fun than it needed to be. I mean, you got some amazing Coastal Carolina games, some good Virginia games, a lot of offense in this one. How often, well, I'm going to say this, well, we know the answer because this happened a lot this year. How often do you see one of these rare 6-1 comebacks? Usually you don't see it ever. That is what happened when Coastal Carolina beat Virginia the second time around, 7-6. That's the main game that stands out there. East Carolina, they whopped Coppin State 17-1, beat Virginia 4-2, got blown out 9-1 by the Chanticleers, and then got revenge with a blowout of their own 13-4. So a lot of blowouts, a lot of offense, a lot of good times. Coastal Carolina was having a memorable run, it felt like. You beat Coppin State 10-8. You beat Virginia 7-6. You beat East Carolina 9-1, and then the bats go cold for just a little bit. East Carolina does their thing. Get to Chapel Hill. North Carolina struggling a little bit. VCU, one of the hottest teams in America, had won 18 straight games coming into this regional, and they made it 19 with a 8-1 win over Georgia. North Carolina blowing out Hofstra 15-4. Georgia was a little mad about losing to VCU. It felt like scoring 24 runs, most they've ever scored in an NCAA tournament game. Get a 24-1 win over Hofstra. VCU upsetting North Carolina 4-3, and then North Carolina beating Georgia 6-5, and then North Carolina got revenge 19-8 and 7-3. That sends the Tar Heels to a super regional, and then we get Stillwater. The offense regional, if you love home runs, this was the regional. If you loved offense, this was the regional. If you loved really weird comebacks, horrible pitching / amazing hitting, everything, this regional had everything. It really did. Oklahoma State getting a 10-5 win over Missouri State. Arkansas beating Grand Canyon 7-1 to start it. Everything seemed normal, calm, normal. And then we get to Grand Canyon, Missouri State, and this regional said, you know what, we're going to crank this up a notch. Grand Canyon has a 7-1 lead on the Bears, and Missouri State scores 7 runs in the 8th and 9th, gets an 8-7 win. And then you get to Oklahoma State, Arkansas, and This was a battle of whose offense is better, what do you got in the tank, what do you have left going on. And the 8th inning, my new favorite rivalry in sports, the Stillwater Regional versus the 8th inning. It felt like everything happened in the 8th inning. Oklahoma State had a 5-run lead, 7-2. It felt like they were going to get away with just whooping up Arkansas. But the Hogs were able to rally. They were able to rally, draw a lot of walks.
That was not in the 8th inning.
No, I'm not saying that was. I'm getting to it. Arkansas was able to claw back a little bit. Then it got to 10-5.
Because I was at most.
Yeah,
of this game.
I'll let you talk more about it since you were there.
What happened was that OSU gets up 7-2. They have Campbell pitching well on the mound.
Yes.
Campbell later would give up 3 more runs to make it 7-5.
Yeah.
OSU a couple innings later would get up 10-5, and then we go to the 7th inning, which was around the time I had to leave, but I was still listening and eventually would be able to watch the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But with that is that they would get 3 more runs to make it 10-8.
Yeah.
And then OSU does nothing in the bottom of the 7th.
Yeah.
And then the 8th inning happened where OSU could not get an out and proceeded to keep walking guys over and over and over. And then basically bases got loaded, so they pull their the relief after Campbell, Moreland.
Yeah.
Pull him out, and then they put McLean in, who is usually our third baseman.
Yeah.
And he obviously man can throw, so he just does not have control at all in that. He literally first pitch walks the guy, scores a run.
Mm-hmm.
Struggles, and basically the Arkansas crowd is doing what A&M did at TCU, keep yelling ball 4, ball 5, ball 6, ball 7.
Kept it going.
And we kept hitting guys, and they would tie the game out and then get the lead. We have to put McLean back at third, bring in relief. First pitch, grand slam, or at least around there. Next batter that was brought in hit the grand slam.
Yeah, I was going to say that grand slam. It felt like it was building to that moment the entire time watching it on TV, where it was just like, oh no, this can't be happening. Oh my good. Oh, that's out of here. Oh, that is a bomb.
Oh, and then the next bottom half of the inning, OSU gets 2 runs, but does nothing with it.
Yeah,
they do nothing with it. No momentum, and basically Arkansas going in the 9th basically puts up 6 more runs to put it out of reach.
Yeah, but then Arkansas getting a 20-12 win. Pretty cool football score, but this is baseball. Didn't think I'd see 32 runs in one game. And then they decided, OSU and Missouri State decided to one-up that, where Missouri State gets a 12-0 lead in the third at the end of the third. And I'm watching this thing to myself, is this about to happen?
I was at work when this happened.
Is this how Oklahoma State's going to lose? They're going to get blown out by Missouri State? Is this revenge for the bedbugs? Like, what is going on here? And Oklahoma State's offense decided to choose violence for 6 innings. Gets a 29-15, and just a casual 29-3 run in baseball, like you see all the time. And Oklahoma State played really well. They come back, got to beat Arkansas, win it in the extra innings, getting a 14-10 win. It felt like, all right, here we go.
And
here's Game 7.
And McLean, who struggled, while he had a good game against Arkansas the first time, didn't have a great game late.
Yeah.
And so basically had to force was able to came into pit, did some solid hitting, but his pitching, he got control of it. He actually was getting guys out, and he didn't really give up anything. And he also hits just a bomb into the left corner.
Yeah.
To basically put the game out of reach.
Yeah.
And then obviously we had to go to the necessary game, which I almost had a stroke. Well, felt like it because I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something else, but I can't.
Yeah, this is a family show. We're rolling
some
with
of the things we say are a bit questionable, I will say. Sometimes.
We don't have JD here to take it up a notch, though.
That's true. Good Lord, this game, it felt like Game 7 of a World Series.
It did. It felt like a super regional game. Like, it felt like a way bigger atmosphere than it was.
I will say, if anyone takes anything from the postseason, they're going to look at the Stillwater Regional, because the Stillwater Regional did set an NCAA record for the most runs.
Yes.
And despite O'Brate Stadium was designed for that not to really happen as
Yeah.
much. Like, you do expect scoring to happen regardless, but no, in its second year of operation, no one thought O'Brien Stadium would have, in a regional, give up 146 runs. And that was just starting from, that was, obviously that's the entire regional, but they had like I believe it's after McLean made it 14-10 in the game before they go to the next, in game 6.
Yeah.
It mainly amounted to, they scored a total of 100 runs.
Yeah.
That was just from the first matchup between Arkansas and Oklahoma State onwards.
Yes.
That just shows just how many runs were being given, how bad pitching was.
Yeah.
The pitching was really bad, was overall not very good. Like, you'd have occasional where Arkansas and OSU would have a pitcher that would throw well, but then everyone else would not pitch as well.
Yeah.
Which really irritated the Arkansas and OSU fan base. Was like, why is the pitching not working? Like, usually when one side's pitching isn't going well, you expect, it's going to happen almost rest down the line. But when both sides are doing it and they can't decide who wants to actually want to win this game, it becomes irritating because it felt like, all right, whose pitching staff wants to be the worst?
Yeah.
Because Arkansas initially was already doing that. And OSU won up them really quickly after Campbell got knocked out.
Yeah.
Like, I would say the worst pitching overall was everyone after Matt Campbell in that first matchup between Arkansas and Oklahoma State. Because Moreland had one good inning, and then he did bad. McLean didn't do well. The two other guys that came after him struggled.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad.
Yeah. I do want to ask you though, because I've seen memes of this, and I'm not the biggest OSU baseball follower. When OSU went up, I think it was 7-2. Who was that guy that hit the home run? He was doing like the dance around the bases where he did like the.
Rock Raggio.
Okay, the amount of memes I've seen with him in it doing one of the poses he did, and then it's like, haha.
There's supposedly talks that happened with Rock Raggio. He admired that home run, which set them up really big in that first matchup, and he danced around the bases. He admired the home run, and then he did what after home plate. Apparently, he got a talking to, these were rumors that I hear.
Yeah.
Apparently, got a talking to by either the athletic director or someone from the NCAA told him he can't do that, and umpires were complaining about that.
Yeah.
So, in the second matchup, he hits a bomb off. He hits a 2-run bomb or 3-run bomb off Arkansas. Proceeds to sprint around the bases, and he almost misses the hat that they always put on after they hit a home run.
Yeah, because I saw where there's one where he was running around and just trying to hype up the crowd and do.
Yeah.
And the Arkansas fans, let me tell you, they did not take too kindly to that. They were ready for, okay, we're going to do this stuff. You just got to ring them up every single time. And it was just like, oh boy, here we go. We got a nice little baseball rivalry going here.
It got chippy in that final game.
Oh,
especially at first base.
Oh yeah.
OSU thought they had him on and out because the Arkansas player for some reason just chose not to slide.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, he basically got thrown. It was right at the same time.
Yeah.
You could have gone 50-50. I wasn't as upset with the call because it was way too close.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously when they called him, so I went, dang it! I thought they were going to possibly overturn that, but I wasn't as upset about that.
Yeah.
And then obviously got chippy and Menman, our first baseman. He did a little extra of a push, but it was mainly just them kind of just more of a friendly push than anything.
Yeah.
And the first base ump overreacted, gave warnings to both dugouts.
Yeah.
And the players saying, "Don't do that again, or I will eject you."
Yeah.
And then it was just like Menman and the guy at first base were just smiling like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
And then eventually there was no chippiness. And the funny part is the announcers who have done OSU regionals several times were like, just have those guys hug it out so we can get it over with.
There you go.
But it was just like, but obviously, and then obviously, I'm not sure if you saw with the ECU regional, umpire pushed a player from admiring the home run. That one, that's where I think the umps got to stop.
Yeah,
like if you're allowed to put your hands on a player should be allowed to put hands on you because. You cannot.
You don't put hands on people. Moral of the story: don't put hands on people that don't belong.
Honest, if I was that ECU player, I would have turned around, maybe would have smacked that ump because it's like you don't push me.
Yeah.
Or I would have been like, I would have gotten up in his grill. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That. I will admire the home run. If you don't like it, you can deal with it.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry. That's the umps are sometimes. It feels like the umps sometimes have too much power.
I mean, it's one of those unwritten rules that you don't do that, where it's like, listen, you hit the home run, just take your 4 bases and go.
Well, and
But at the same time,
that's more of an MLB thing because in
Yeah.
college they do it all the time.
Yeah.
They're just having fun, and that they understand when you get to the professional level, you got to have a form of professionalism.
yeah,
But obviously, there's times where the MLB is like perfectly fine if you do what like the players manage it. The umps don't do anything.
yeah,
But this is a case where the umps are trying to enforce the unwritten rules in some aspects
yeah,
when they need to let the players handle that.
Yeah.
Players will deal with it on their own. This is one of the sports where like in other sports, the refs are usually having to have to control the game.
yeah,
In baseball, it's the players that leash each other from going too far.
Yeah.
It's like like with Jose Batista, like obviously his antics when he was with Toronto, and
Yeah.
then the Rangers took it into their own hands to do whatever, even
Yeah.
though Jose instigated a fight.
yeah.
Even though obviously everyone was like,
About Odor and
Odor punching him. It was like Hodor tried to take his head off with a baseball.
yeah,
So it's like, I don't know why people are on his side. I guess you want to humble Batista, but it was like, that's where players
no.
manage it on their own, though. They got to handle it
Yeah.
with a certain amount of professionalism.
yeah. Well, I mean, Toronto ended that fight though when they beat him in the.
Oh,
playoffs.
I know they did.
It was funny.
Rather get punched in,
Yeah,
get punched in April than get swept in October.
yeah, or get knocked out in October, whatever that sign.
Because they
was.
swept them.
Yes, it was great.
So,
But one question I do have for, because I saw a lot of OSU fans talking about, where do you go from here? Some people are saying, fire pitching coaches. I saw some like Holiday's never going to win in the postseason. This guy can't do it.
Holiday went to the World Series before, and he's been to several supers.
Yeah,
This is like one of 2, maybe 3 times in his tenure where he's never made it out of a regional.
yeah,
One of the year, it was the third time. The third time, one of the 3 was they only got in because they won the Big 12 title.
yeah,
They won the tournament. Therefore, they got moved in as a 4
Yeah.
because they had a good ARP. I think the teams they played were good. The team just themselves were not playing well. So they got lucky they got in. And then they had one where I forget who they played. Oh, they lost to one of the California teams, one of the smaller ones. From I believe the Big West or whatever.
yeah. It was like
It was like UC something.
Santa Barbara maybe. Or,
I think it was either Santa Barbara. But anyways, we couldn't get out of that.
Yeah.
It was our own regional that we
Yeah.
got eliminated. And this is one where we got beat by
Yeah.
Arkansas. The pitching is where it failed. Our hitting core and the defense on display was fine, despite a couple of weird wobbly problems with throwing the ball to first.
Yeah,
But it's one of those where Walton needs to find better pitchers, or at least go get some better recruits, or bring in transfers,
yeah,
or we need a change at the cook position, because Walton has brought in great pitchers that have gone on to pro level.
yeah,
We've brought in great pitchers, but the issue is everyone all around is not playing. Besides Matt Campbell, and Matt Campbell being usually consistently well, the pitching stats have been iffy all year. It's one of the first times where we were not like if the pitching overall was consistent through most of the year. I think you don't have the situation with Arkansas where you're trading leads constantly. Might have been one of those where OSU maybe loses a game, but they don't lose the necessary game. But that also amounted to in that final game, the bats didn't come through.
Yeah.
And the pitching did what they could, but they failed.
yeah,
But this is one thing. This is going to be up to Holiday and our athletic director to decide on what we do in the future with baseball.
yeah,
I don't see, for anyone who thinks Holiday should be you're an idiot. Holiday has been one of the better things that's happened in Oklahoma State, because the last couple of years with our previous head coach was not going well.
yeah,
Frank Eaton was not very great with that final group of couple of years he was here. Josh Holiday revived that program to being back to being where it used to be. And also he brought in his brother, who's been also helpful with that hitting core. And the staff that he has around him is good. It's Walton, what do we do? Do we keep him? Do we ride him out another year? And if we have another failure with pitching when it matters, do we get rid of him? Or do we get rid of him now and maybe jeopardize recruiting?
Yeah.
Because OSU is going to bring in another good recruiting class like they always do. They're going to bring in some solid hitting and pitching and good fielding. I don't think it's right now is the best time. Even though when I talked to my dad about this, I even brought up that we probably should fire Walton, but I've kind of backtracked on that where I don't think we need to get rid of him. We need to look our options first. I think let's keep him for one more year. And if this happens again where the pitching just falls apart, whether it's during the regular season where it might cost us a regional or maybe we might not make the tournament, or it collapses like what it did now, whether it be in a super or the regional. Heck, could be the World Series for all I know. But if we go to the World Series, they're not going to get rid of anyone.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where just look at your options. Right now, I don't really want to get rid of him yet. But if we have another, like if this happens again next year, we need to consider who we need to get rid of. But but do not get rid of most of that staff. Most of that staff is fine. Yeah. It's just our pitching is what killed us. Yeah. Otherwise, so it's basically you're just looking at one guy. You're looking at one assistant. Everyone else, Josh might be on the hot seat, though not really. I think he's fine. Yeah. We're not going to get rid of him. He has to have a really terrible season to get rid of him. He basically has to. He basically only has to. It has to be a season where he loses 40 games. That's never going to happen with him. Yeah. Unless
like a lot of freak injuries happen or something like that.
It would and I think even then they would give him a pass. Yeah. Because you lost so many you lost players to injuries. Yeah. But once again, we'll got to see where we go from here. As far as I know, OSU loses Griffin. I cannot say that last name. Dorshinger. We'll lose him because senior. We'll lose Matt Campbell because he's going to get drafted. Yeah. I don't know if he was a senior or not, but no, he wasn't. I think just he's going to get drafted. Yeah. Because he's projected to be top 10 first round or top 5. Because that's just how well he's impressed scouts. Obviously, the Arkansas Regional might shake some things up, but Arkansas was hitting so well in that tournament.
They were.
But we've been on this for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, we've been here for a while.
Let's move on, otherwise we're going to be here until 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so we could talk about this for a long time. Texas A&M, College Station Regional, Aggies taking care of business, 8-2 over Oral Roberts, 9-6 over Louisiana. Louisiana able to beat TCU 7-6 their first game. And the Aggies, down 9-8 going into the ninth, you just win a 15-9. Just do enough. And that's what A&M did. So they will be hosting a super regional as they will take on Louisville.
Who looked like they, obviously after losing to Michigan the first time, they pretty much just blew through everybody.
Yeah, they had a message to prove. You beat Southeast Missouri State 7-2. Michigan beats Oregon 8-6. Oregon drops 18 on Southeast Missouri State. A lot of runs there. Michigan upsetting Louisville 7-3. Louisville eliminates Oregon later that day 8-5. Louisville came back with a vengeance, getting a 20-1 win, and then Game 7 was a back and forth the entire game, but Louisville getting an 11-9 win.
Yeah, that was one of those where it was like, that was Louisville's region to lose, and if they would have lost that would have been really embarrassing. Yes. It was like, because everyone else in that region, I know Oregon could hit well, but they really weren't that great. Great overall, and Michigan got the shocking upset. Basically, Louisville I don't think should ever have lost a game, but they did. And they made a point and won. So that's all that matters. And how about, we'll get to them in a second.
Yeah, we'll get to this, but at the Rain Delay Regional, I mean the Miami Regional, I mean the Coral Gables Regional, I mean the Ole Miss Regional, because Ole Miss was the team in this regional. Miami got an 11-6 win over Canisius early on. Ole Miss beat Arizona 7-4. And Ole Miss beats Miami 2-1. Arizona finished them off that night 4-3. And Ole Miss said, we're taking no chances, 22-6. They destroy Arizona. And the Rebels going back to a super. And they will be playing a state rival because Southern Miss had some fun games. Southern Miss themselves, I mean, day one it looked like it was going to be the only 4-1 upset for a long time, but it was a great pitcher's duel, but Southern Miss got a 2-0 win over Army. Kennesaw State had an 11-4 lead on LSU in game one. Tigers scored 10 runs in the 8th inning to get a 14-11 win. Kennesaw State then had a big rally to beat Army 9-8. And LSU down 6-5. Guess what? 9th inning, here come the Tigers, 7-6. They stunned Southern Miss. Southern Miss having to hold off on Kennesaw State. They got a 4-1 or a 4-3 win, and Southern Miss then beats LSU 8-4 and then 8-7, having to come from behind. And so Southern Miss and Ole Miss, a Mississippi regional rivalry there in Hattiesburg.
That's not much of a drive for Ole Miss. So
no, it really isn't.
They're lucky because they don't have to go to.
Yeah,
they have. I know. I understand LSU's really close to them, but it's still a bit of a drive to Baton Rouge.
I was just like, could you imagine LSU Ole Miss Super?
Oh man,
you want immediate hostility.
That is like they hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-sided hate from Southern Miss towards Ole Miss, so it'll be pretty intense there.
Let's move on to one team. How about your Sooners?
Yeah, all I gotta say is, hey, called it. I believe in my heart that they could beat Florida.
You did not believe. You don't remotely believe in this team. I talked to you yesterday. You're like, I don't believe in this team at all.
I believed in them until they got beat 7-2, and then I was like, oh, they're going to do what they always do. But they didn't, and I'm so proud of this team.
You had no hope in this team whatsoever until they won the regional.
I had belief before the regional and after the regional. During the middle, a little bit got a little tested, but Florida.
You had zero faith in them, and then when they won, it's now back up. Stop lying.
I mean, I didn't. No, if you would have talked to me after beating Florida 9-4, I would have said we're winning this regional. We're in their head.
I'm talking about when Florida beat you guys. You lost faith.
I did, yeah.
You lost complete faith in them, and then when they finally won,
now they're back.
It's like I believe. It's like you did not believe in any. You lost faith in this team as quickly as you gained it.
Yeah, then I had belief in them once they finally started playing well in the 8th again after a 9-year rain delay. This was a fun regional. Oklahoma, Florida played a fun series against each other. A lot of chippiness, a lot of near fights getting started, a lot of almost ejections, it felt like.
I guess Florida still isn't over getting their butts kicked in the Sugar Bowl.
No, they're not. They're not over the Cotton Bowl. They're not over us beating them in softball and gymnastics and other gymnastics and and every sport basically. Since
any sport you've had to play them in.
Any sport after the 2008 national title game, it is a personal mission to make sure they never beat us in anything ever again. Oklahoma just dominated Liberty 16-3. Florida beat Central Michigan 7-3. Got to talk about the Chippewas a little bit. One of the feistiest 4 seeds in this entire regional. They took Florida to the wire in an elimination game. Had an opportunity to win that game and walk Florida off. They beat Liberty in a 12-inning knockout, and Central Michigan played pretty well, I would say, considering the circumstances. But Oklahoma getting a 9-4 win over Florida. Nearly had a fight in this one. Peyton Graham hits a big home run early, admires it. First baseman doesn't like it, gives him a little talking to. Comes home and hears it from the Florida fans and the Florida bench, or Florida dugout, I should say. And then the next inning, Florida is trying to prevent Oklahoma from scoring through a wild pitch. The OU player is just standing here. He's minding his own business. He's not going to get in the way. The catcher runs into the OU player, tries to shove him to get the ball, but he shoves him in the direction of the ball. So the OU guy's just standing there with his hands up saying, hey, I'm not doing anything. Florida guy keeps shoving him to try to get the ball and then says it should be interference. You can't review that play, so there was no anything there. OU got the run.
Well, it's like, first of all, you ran it. You could have just gone around him, and so you went through him.
Yeah, he kept trying to go through him, and then those two that OU guy.
I'm sorry, if a Florida player would have done that with me on deck, I probably would have started throwing fists.
But here's the thing. Those two had another confrontation later in the game, because next time he came up to bat, he swung at ball 3, and he shouldn't have done that. But he swings at it low, catcher drops it. The OU guy, nearly trips on the dirt, which was pretty sad. But he trips nearly. The catcher picks up, shoves him to the ground to tag him out, and then, kind of just tries to size him up and shoves him back, and then the OU guy, he's not going to take that, so he starts chirping at him. The Florida crowd loves it. They start clapping along. Everyone's into it. Ump issues warnings for both sides.
I'm surprised they didn't issue warnings after that little skirmish they had before.
Then it was like, okay, it's on. And then OU just started blasting them, and it was just like, okay, this is nice. And then you get to Saturday, Florida gets to return the favor. They get a 7-2 win, and Oklahoma they looked like they were about ready to just roll over and die. And I was just like, oh, great. We're going to do this again. It's going to be one of those days. OU gets down 2-1 to Florida. It looks like here we go. Florida's going to do what they do. And then a 6-hour rain delay comes in.
That might have been your saving grace.
Yeah, completely changes the game. Florida comes out, scores a run in the bottom of the 7th, gets up 3-1. Peyton Graham, 2-run home run. He's not losing this series. And then Oklahoma gets 2 more runs, gets up 5-3, going to the bottom of the 9th. Florida hits a home run, 5-4, makes OU sweat it out a bit. But got to love the OU closer, who's actually their starter. Bennett, who's the Thursday night starter, comes in as a closer, walk off, do a little gator chomp, go home. Send them packing. So
that is funny.
Yeah, and I saw when people clip that, and they're like, if you don't think OU's ready for the SEC, they're going to fit right in.
Well, I will say you got to be able to – we got to now respond to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, here's the problem. That's 15 and 24. Virginia Tech is one of the best offenses in the country.
That's 39 runs.
That's a lot of runs.
39 runs to 13.
Yes.
They basically had no trouble, and it looked like they didn't even – like, anyone who they were going to have to play, they were just like, whatever. Care.
Here's the thing. That Wright State game was tied at 7 in the 7th inning. But then it didn't matter because Virginia Tech started blowing them up. And how about Columbia making it their personal mission to take Gonzaga out? Beat them 8-2 and then 15-6 to eliminate them. Wright State, I feel so bad for. Another great 4 seed that every year they lead their top 5 in home runs hit. And every year they get sent to be some 1 seed's nightmare for a game.
Yes, that's how it always works because they don't play. Their RPI isn't good enough.
Yes, they're not in a big enough conference for it to matter. But Virginia Tech, they beat Columbia twice with their eyes closed, 24-4 and 7-2.
That's one of the sad realities for Wright State. You're basically having to force them to. I don't know if they did it or not, but it's like they basically all their non-con has to be against power conferences and real top ranked teams for them to even get a good RPI. Otherwise, they're stuck being a 4 seed forever.
Yeah.
But that's what happens with baseball is that when it opens up, the conferences are – it's bad because you like basketball.
Exactly.
There's so many of them, and you only have particular teams that will always have top seeds. Mm-hmm. Unless they're ones of those that just sneak in.
That is true. That can't happen. So we'll get a Virginia Tech Super Regional, and
Auburn just – didn't have a hard time.
Auburn had a pretty easy time, I would say.
They're probably the most hot team right now.
Yeah, you beat Southeast Louisiana 19-7. You beat Florida State 21-7. You beat UCLA 11-4. Auburn just rolls to a regional. Not a whole lot to say in this one.
Sad part is that they're as good as they've played. They're not going to host a super.
No,
because they're 14. But they're playing like the best team. Like they're playing better than everybody right now. That might have been the teams they got handed that might seem that way, but every team that makes the tournament is not a pushover.
Yeah.
So the fact Auburn was able to pretty much mostly cakewalk their entire region kind of just shows that we're really good, and they might give Oregon State problems.
They very well could.
Spoiler alert, not really.
I would say they very well could give them problems. Oregon State,
survives.
They had a whale of a time in their own regional. It starts with night 1. New Mexico State comes knocking at their door and just gets into a fight with them that goes into extras. Oregon State clawing out a 5-4 win there. San Diego upset Vandy game 1, 3-2. And it felt like, okay, Torero's got something in him. Vanderbilt responding with a 21-1 win over New Mexico State. Oregon State cruised over San Diego 12-3. Commodores a 14-4 win over San Diego to knock them out. Beat Oregon State 8-1. Vandy did over the Beavs, and then in a tight game 7, needing 7, Oregon State 7-6 over Vandy.
Yep.
Fun regional in Corvallis.
It was a really good regional. One of those things where I thought Vandy was actually going to take the regional.
Yeah, it felt like they were going to come
like,
back.
Vandy had their opportunity to take it, but props to Oregon State for managing to get over a underrated Vanderbilt team. Because Vanderbilt wasn't dominating everyone like they usually do. Everyone's, Vandy's not really as good this year. And I'm like, Vandy is Vandy. OSU only won 2 out of 3 against them.
Mm-hmm.
And Vandy was at the time in the top 5. Like, Vanderbilt is good. They just they got hit with issues early on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things where they were underappreciated. And I'm like, this team could have easily if they would have probably pulled it together late in the season, they could have probably stolen a region from someone.
They very well could have.
But in the end of the day, they got a 2 seed. They had their shot to steal one in Corvallis, and Oregon State managed to hold on.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to mention that I thought was actually pretty funny with this one is we were so close to having a 1-2 elimination game, like right out of the gate. And we were so close to having Oregon State, Vandy, and San Diego, New Mexico State as a winner's bracket.
That would have been hilarious.
Which, I mean, after we hyped it up like Oregon State, Vandy's going to be great, if we would have got like, San Diego beat New Mexico, San Diego won the regional, guys. What? What do you mean San Diego won the regional?
Everyone like, what?
Everyone just
doing
been like,
Jackie Chan. Just
yeah,
like, what?
everyone just like, what in the world is actually going on here? But it has been a fun time recapping every single regional and what has been it's already a wild postseason. You knew it was going to happen at some point where chaos was going to break out.
Well, if you want chaos, just look at that Stillwater regional. That's all you got to look at is how many runs were scored.
Yeah, that was the chaos regional, but there was so much that went on. And as always, we thank you for tuning in. It has been a great time. Hopefully, I know we'll be back Thursday. We might have a show, Andrew and I, Wednesday night. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to know if we do have that show or not, you can give us a follow here on Twitch, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Be sure to like and subscribe the video when this goes up on YouTube, and subscribe to whatever channel you're watching this on if you've made it this far, whether it be the NWTV7 YouTube channel or the Guys Who Stare at Stats. For Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy, and have a wonderful night, everybody.